Hi, I'm DJ80 and I run justcalleddiscos.com. And if you're watching this video, it's probably because you're planning on running a disco yourself at the school. So what we're going to be covering in this short video is the planning part. So this isn't the disco itself, this is things to consider before the event. And there's only really three things you need to keep in the back of your mind. One is safety, two is simplicity, and three is satisfaction. So what do I mean by those? So when I consider safety, it is, and it should be yours, top priority. So if you are planning your disco or you're at the disco and at any point something crops up and it's whatever's cropped up versus safety, you always choose safety. So that might be an upset parent versus safety, you choose safety. It might mean making less money, you choose safety. I'm sure you get the point. Safety must always be your priority because it's not only your little world that's going to be there at the disco. All the other parents, their child is their world as well, and they're trusting you to make sure the children are safe. Now let's look at simplicity. So I meet and I greet and I get phone calls and emails from lots of brand new PTAs, and my advice is always the same. Keep it simple. If it's your first time, keep it simple. And then once you've done one or two, you can build from that. So when I say simple, what I mean is you want the disco, you might want, you do want drinks whilst you're there, and you might want a snack or not. It depends how long the disco is going to be. Children won't starve at a disco if they're there for an hour. But very often people have some squash, and they might have a packet of crisps, or they might have a Satsuma, an apple, one small snack that the children can have. But you want to keep it as simple as possible. Don't make too much work for yourself. And then lastly, I want to talk about satisfaction. So when I say that, what you want to consider with your disco is not how much money you're going to make, not how popular you're going to be, but are the children going to get satisfied from the event? Are they going to have something that they can take away and go, wow, that was memorable? You know, they enjoyed it. It was enriching for them. So bear that in mind when you're making your decisions. So now that we've covered that, let's just look at some of the planning stages that you might want to consider. So the first part of your planning is to choose a date. So 2/3 of the PTAs that book me normally go for a Friday. It's the end of the week and, you know, the children can have a later night and we haven't got to worry about them getting up in the morning. That said, 1/3 of the PTA that pick me book Monday to Thursday, and they get a cheaper rate for that because it's midweek. So you will typically find if you're booking a DJ, Friday, Saturday, Sunday is going to be more expensive because it's their peak time. That's just the cost side of things. What you also want to consider is the date suitable for the children? So if there is a big football match going on, maybe it's on the TV, the Lions or the Lionesses, and you know it's on that date, then you probably don't want to do it then. Or maybe there's something big going on locally. So maybe there's a big event going on locally in your town that the children want to go to, or you know, maybe it clashes with firework night or Halloween, something like that. So very often, if you're booking in months in advance, you might not know, and you might just get unlucky that the date you've booked happens to be the same date as something else that's going on. But by and large, you'll probably be all right. But just think about that particular date and just see if you can do a little bit of research, see if anything else is going on. So the next point you might want to think about is your timing. What time of the day are you going to have it? So I would advise that you speak to the school to see when the hall's available. 99% of my bookings are at the school, in the school hall, but there are a small amount where they can't do that and they have it at a separate hall. But in most instances, speak to the school, find out if the hall's available. Don't forget you'll need to get in there earlier to prepare the hall. If you're getting a DJ, they need to get in and set everything up. So for instance, if there's an after school club going on that finishes at 4:30, don't start your disco at 4:30 because there's lots of stuff that needs to happen before then. You want to speak to the school, whether you can get the hall. Are you going to have teachers helping you? That can be really helpful when it comes to the children leaving the event and you need to sign them out. How many parents have you got and what's their availability? You know, maybe if you do it too early in the day, they might all be at work. So very often it can help to get those things in place and find out what you've got to work with before deciding on what time you're going to start the school disco. And some school discos will start straight after school, which works quite well because the children are already in school and they can come straight from their classrooms straight into the disco. Obviously from a PTA point of view, that means you need to get there sort of like an hour before and set up the drinks and the crisps and anything else. Some schools leave it, so the children go home after school and then they sort of come back later on in the afternoon, 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and it's like a separate event, and they've gone home, they've got dressed and, you know, got dressed up and got really excited about the event. But it really will depend on how much help you need, whether you're a small school or a big school, and the availability of all that help. So I would suggest you look at that first before deciding on what time to start your first disco. So the next thing you want to think about is the duration of the discos themselves. Ordinarily, most schools have just 2 discos, one for Key Stage 1, one for Key Stage 2. So year 1, 2 and 3 in the first disco and year 4, 5 and 6 in the second disco. But that is not always the case, and it might not be the case for your school depending on the size. So if we have just 2 discos and we have Key Stage 1, the first disco should be no longer than an hour. So you can go between 45 minutes and an hour, and that is plenty enough time for those younger children to enjoy themselves. Don't want to go over an hour. Second disco for Key Stage 2 can range between an hour and an hour and a half, so 60 to 90 minutes, but 90 minutes max. I do not advise you to go over that because after that the children just get too accustomed to their environment and start going a bit feral. The sweet spot is 75 minutes, an hour and a quarter. That's just perfect for Key Stage 2. But you might find that you need to hold more than 2 discos. So maybe you're at a big school and you need to stagger the disco. So for instance, tomorrow I'm actually at school and they need to do 4 discos back to back because it's a big school and for health and safety reasons they can't have everyone in. So an example here is tomorrow I arrive on site at 2:15 in the afternoon and for an hour I load all my equipment in, do a lighting check, a sound check and make sure everything's all safe to go. And then at 3:15 the first disco starts, and this is for reception year, so it's just them on their own. But they also let the parents come in, and that's something you're going to need to think about when you look at your hall and how many numbers you can have in your hall. So speak to your school because there will be a limit on how many people you can safely have in the hall at any one time. So this first disco starts at 3:15 tomorrow and it's for 45 minutes. So it's not going to be like a loud banging affair. It's for the reception year. It's going to be their first school disco ever and the parents are going to be there. That will finish at 4. Then there's a 15-minute turnaround. Then we'll have another disco. This will be for an hour and that's going to be for year 1 and 2. Another 15-minute turnaround, and then year 3 and 4, they get disco for an hour. Another 15-minute turnaround, and then year 5 and 6 at the end, and they're having a 75-minute disco, which will take us to 8 o'clock in the evening. 20 minutes for me to pack up and get out. So I would have been on site for 6 hours, which means you probably will be too. And during that time, we've covered all the year groups. So if you're at a big school, check with your school to see how many people you can have in and consider whether or not you're going to have parents there who are going to want to stay, especially if you're doing like reception year and year 1. Not all schools do it. Some schools have a blanket ban where they say the parents can't stay, but plenty of schools do it where they let the parents come in as well. So step 4, refreshments. You're going to have to plan, and definitely you're going to need to have drinks. So you can choose to buy reusable plastic cups, and if you've got enough helpers you can wash them in between each disco, or you can just buy enough for both discos to start off with. Or you can use disposable cups or recyclable cups that you can sort of throw away into the recycle bin. But with both discos, or however many discos you're having, you will need drinks. If the children are singing and dancing, they're going to get thirsty, even if it's just a 45-minute disco. On to food. Bear in mind, you will have to consider allergies and intolerances as well. So if you're planning on doing food, if it's your first disco, keep it simple. Packet crisp will do, or you can go for a piece of fruit if you want. And the truth is, you actually don't even need to provide any food if you don't want to, if you're not comfortable doing it. As long as the children have got drinks, as I said before at the beginning, keep it simple. The children aren't going to starve to death if they're at a disco for an hour and there's nothing to eat. In fact, it might improve their appetite and they might eat their dinner when they get home. And on to the final step, and this is to do with pricing. Now, I get asked an awful lot about how much you should be charging for a ticket for your disco. So there are a few things that you just want to think about before you jump straight into a price. So primarily, you want to cover your overhead. So that might be the DJ. You shouldn't need to pay for the hall hire at school, but if you have to hire a separate hall, then you need to consider that. The cost of your squash or your drink, and if you're doing a snack, your cost of that. So you don't need to pay other PTA helpers because they're there to do it for free. And in what I would say is most important is, when we looked at the beginning of this video, satisfaction. So your primary goal should be to run a disco which enriches the children's lives, not about making money. So I'm a member of lots of PTA groups, as I'm sure you are, and it's like a car crash version of The Apprentice. It's all about, oh, make money, sell this, make money, sell that, make money, sell. And they kind of lose focus of the main goal, which is to enrich the children. And it all becomes about how much money you can make and how much did they make. And don't go down that route. It's not necessary. Satisfaction is what you should be thinking about, and that's for the children's benefit. So when you're pricing your tickets, my advice is to sell them in advance. Do not sell them on the day, and make it one ticket price that includes everything. So this is the simplicity of things. If you just have one price, you haven't then got to worry about selling stuff on the day. People turning up. You get some children who will turn up with £20 and they want to buy £20 worth of stuff, and you get some children that can come with no money and they're going to feel like they missed out because they can't buy anything. If you do one ticket price beforehand, the parents will know what the cost is. They haven't got to fork out any more money on the day, and it keeps it all inclusive, so all the children are in the same boat and they can all have the same experience. Also, there's no surprises as well. One other thing that you might want to think about is when you run your first disco, you will inevitably get someone come up to you and say, I didn't see one of the 100 emails you sent about the disco. I didn't see any of the posters that you put up about the disco. And therefore, I haven't bought a ticket for my child to come to the disco tonight. And there are two ways you can go here. You can either say, okay, I want this parent to be happy. You can buy a ticket now. It's last minute, but you can buy a ticket and you can come in. Or you can say, the ticket cut-off time was such and such a date. We've reached maximum numbers, or for health and safety reasons, we can't sell any more tickets. Unfortunately, your child can't come to the disco tonight. The first route will be never ending. Every time you run a disco, you're going to get someone come up to you and say, oh, I did buy a ticket. But it's the easy option. The second route of putting out a clear and concise cut-off date for the tickets means you can perfectly plan for how many people you're having, how many drinks you got to buy, how many packet of crisps you got to get, and you haven't got to worry about all that last minute drama, but it will make you the bad guy. But these parents will learn. If they actually have to miss a disco first time round, they're not going to make that mistake again next time round. So it really depends on you and how you want to manage it and how your team are able to manage it, and maybe it might be input from the school. But what typically happens is the schools will start advertising the disco and they will close ticket sales 2 days before. So if the disco is on a Friday, ticket sales close by Wednesday. And if you haven't bought your ticket by then, it's tough. But it is really down to you. But I guarantee you will get parents that are going to come up to you at the last minute, and for whatever reason, they didn't get a ticket, but they want their child to come. So just consider that. So that's it. That's all you need to consider when planning your disco. Safety, never compromise on safety. Even if you get parents that will complain, or if you're not going to make enough money, safety comes first. Simplicity, keep it all simple. Get a couple of discos under your belt, and then if you want to expand from that, you can. And satisfaction. The main goal of your event should be to give the children a good time. It should not be about making as much money as you possibly can. I hope that helps. There's some other videos on my website you can watch as well. But for now, bye bye from DJ80, and hopefully I'll see you soon.